Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Zipline, the official Zipper Interactive podcast. This is episode 1. We're doing everything kind of on the fly here, so hopefully it goes smoothly. But this is our new weekly show where we're going to be talking about MAG, the SOCOM franchise, Zipper Interactive as a whole. I am Chris Roper, the community specialist here at Zipper Interactive.
And I'm Jeremy Dunham. I'm the senior community manager at Zipper Interactive. You might recognize me from the boards as ZPR_Dunham Smash, and you might recognize Chris as ZPR_Roper. With us today, we have Travis Steiner. He's the lead designer of SOCOM 4, the object of your affection. He also did some design work on MAG. How's it going, Travis?
It's going good. Thanks, guys.
So to give people a heads up on how the Zipline podcast is going to work in general, we have a pretty fast schedule. We're going to take a look back at the week in Zipper happenings, and then also take a look at the week in PlayStation happenings, and then delve in with Travis and find out what he's up to, what he's all about. His likes, dislikes, what he looks for in a woman, things like that. Yes,
actually, if you want to send us things to talk about here, I think I've got some crazy echo going on, but we're, again, this is episode 1, so we'll get it all hashed out. But if you want to send us questions to ask whoever's going to be on the show, we'll tell you who's going to be on next week. Want things to talk about, feedback for the show. There's going to be posts on the MAG and SOCOM forums. You can go on there, submit questions, do other sorts of things.
And don't be discouraged if we don't answer your questions this week. There's always next week. This week alone, we had over 600 questions for Travis, so popular guy. We made him write answers to all of them in essay form. Yeah. We just didn't have the time to read them.
Next week, submit 5 numbers up to, 46 for the lottery, and 1 power number, and then if you actually win, we'll read your question.
Very good.
Yeah, we got to start going that way. Jeremy, why don't you do the Zipper recap?
Zipper recap. Okay, the Z-Cap. So basically, there are 2 main things to talk about this week in Zipper happenings. Number 1 is we released the MAG patch version 105 on Monday. And what that did is that increased the leadership criteria a little bit beyond what it used to be. Now you're going to have leaders picked based on how many leadership points they have, and also whether or not they have a mic. That doesn't exclude people who don't have a mic from being picked as a leader, but it increases the odds of people who fall into that criteria being picked. So, and that's something that we wanted to give folks, because a lot of people were asking us to give them more communication options for leaders, and obviously that's something that's very important. So we put that in there, and then we also, of course, announced that Fast Attack Pack. That's coming out April 29th for MAG. That'll be downloadable a week from today. And that's going to add some new sniper rifles, some improved light armor. And we'll talk about that more next week. We have our special guest, but more on him later.
Yeah. And then just as a week, if you're playing MAG or SOCOM, it makes sense that you have a PlayStation. So you might want to know other PlayStation things going on. Travis, are you a baseball fan?
I'm a bit of a baseball fan, but I'm more of a football and basketball fan, to be honest.
Well, okay, that doesn't apply so much then, because this week the MLB.TV app came out for the PS3. It's a subscription service, but aside from blackout games, you can watch any game happening in Major League Baseball in HD, which is pretty rad. And then there's scoreboards. You can see all the stuff in real time, live updates. That sounds pretty awesome. I'm still moving into my apartment here, so I haven't been able to try any of this stuff out. But
we could reenact it for you. I could swing an imaginary bat.
Yes, okay, we'll try that one afterwards. Jeremy, you are a fan of the Hulk.
Hulk.
I hear that he's going to be in a new game that we're talking about this week.
Yes, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was announced earlier this week, and that's something, as a Hulk fan, I'm very excited about. I know a lot of people here at work was excited about it. The day it was announced, lots of emails went around, said, check it out, it's coming.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool trailer.
Seriously, though, the trailer, Hulk vs. Chris Redfield, Hulk wins. Come on.
Yeah, you can't... Anyway, 3.30 firmware update for the PS3 came out. Lets you organize and look at your trophies a little bit differently.
Yeah,
you can sort them.
You can sort them by not only when you unlock them up and down, but also by title. So it's a little bit more helpful. It also prepares your system for the 3D update for PlayStation 3 games later in the year.
Yeah. And then lastly, everybody's favorite game called Uncharted. Uncharted 2 got a new piece of DLC called the Siege expansion. This adds a new mode, some fixes, a couple of things, and they have a double cash weekend or something coming up pretty soon, so look for that.
We should start those at Zipper.
Yeah, I could do some more cash.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's play.
Yeah. That brings us to that part. I guess let's start talking with Travis here. The first thing that I wanted to know is your title is lead designer. Back in the day, back in the late 80s, the golden age of video games, you had one designer. You had your one Sid Meier, and everybody else worked him. These days, you've got combat designers, weapons designers, map designers, you've got associate map designers, lead executive designers, and then there's the whole production line and all these things. Can you give us a quick overview of what the kind of hierarchy and who does what in the whole design process is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has changed a lot, even just the last few years. As games get bigger and bigger, the teams are expanding exponentially. On SOCOM 4 specifically, we have a pretty big design team. We have a team of level designers, and their main role is to design the maps, both single player and MP, and populate them with gameplay. So things like setting up AI, objectives, and things like that. And then they all report to a lead level designer who basically spearheads that process. We also have an array of systems designers. We have guys that are focused on, say, core gameplay, so camera systems, weapons tuning, things like that. We have an AI designer who really works with the AI engineers to make sure that both the teammates and the enemies are doing the kind of behaviors that we want in the game. We also have designers that are more technical focused. They'll create tools for us to use and really just make life easier for the other designers as well as other members on the team. And a lot of experimental R&D projects come from those guys a lot of times. And we also have more MP focused designers who really craft up the systems behind multiplayer, game modes, community features, and things like that. And then, of course, per project, we have a lead designer. So I'd be the lead designer, for example, on SOCOM 4. And then I report to a design manager and a creative director. And
where's the partridge in a pear tree in this setup?
I know. There's a lot of ins and outs, but actually it works pretty good. So design manager, his role is basically to make sure everyone's staying on task, getting work done. And then the creative director basically has an eye for all things design related across the whole studio. So he's looking both at SOCOM 4 and MAG. And so he and I will work quite a bit together to work on things like creating the story and overall features and goals of the game.
So where do you spend most of your time then as lead designer? Where do you spend most of your time on SOCOM 4?
I spend most of my time in conference rooms meeting. Well, it really changes as the product evolves. So early on, when the team's a little bit smaller, I spend a lot of time really just brainstorming ideas about gameplay features we want to bring into the game, talking to people, all the different stakeholders involved, whether it's at Zipper or at Sony, kind of planning out what's the meat going to be behind the game, and really doing a lot of writing, I guess, on specs, and getting the other designers up to speed. And then as the project goes on, I get more and more hands-off with that sort of thing, and really do legitimately spend more time in meetings as we evaluate, how is the game playing, how are the features coming online, do we need to make trade-offs of certain things or adjust things. So I get a little more hands-off and really spend more time just kind of going around and working with people, kind of evaluating how things are progressing. So it is nice having the diversity, though, because really the role of designer, and specifically lead designer, you get a lot of variety day to day, and certainly as the project evolves, it's just fun getting to do unique things.
One question that has to be asked, and a lot of people on the forums are asking us this, not only on our own forums, but I've seen on forums on several media sites as well. What is the concept of SOCOM 4? When you came in and you decided to create the game, what is the overall concept? What is the driving factor behind it? Give us a little bit of background.
Well, okay, so it probably goes back a couple years, maybe as many as 4 years ago. We sat down, we talked about, if we're going to do SOCOM 4, what is it going to entail? What do we want to put in there? And really some of the key people involved would be, some of the leadership here at Zipper, as well as the people we work with over at Sony production team. And in looking at it, we knew that confrontation was already in development, and that the intention behind that was to be a multiplayer only, really intended to be a classical nod towards SOCOM 2 style gameplay, infantry focused and more of the classic experience, not spending a whole lot of time on say evolving things, but rather translating the true classic SOCOM experience over to the next gen platform. Mm-hmm. So we knew that was an effort underway when we started looking at SOCOM 4. So immediately we started talking about first off, single player. Something SOCOM games in the past, we've always had I think a pretty good single player, but I think everyone would agree the multiplayer has kind of overshadowed it a bit. We really were excited about the challenge of bringing our single player up to a higher level and really getting to focus on some new challenges that we've never undertaken. Things like creating a more cinematic, story-based experience and just really trying to explore evolving the gameplay there. So that's really where SOCOM 4 started out. We started, first talking about the single player and things we wanted to do there. And then for multiplayer, I think a lot of our cues came over from some of the single player efforts. So, interest in evolving the core gameplay, creating kind of a fresh, new, evolved SOCOM experience translates over to MP. I think in some of the interviews I've talked about, it's an all-new experience, new game modes. And I think a lot of fans have the question, is like, why would you change a formula that's been successful? And I think that's a pretty in-depth thing to get into, but I would like to address it. I mean, so obviously, a big component of that, is certainly confrontation and wanting to make sure that if we have two SOCOM products that are going to be coming out, relatively in a similar window, we wanted to make sure that we were offering something that was really a new experience. And I think as well as, as developers, we're hardcore SOCOM fans. We've been working on the franchise, some of us, for 7 to 10 years. I mean, a lot of the core members behind the original games are still on the SOCOM 4 team. But even as much as we love SOCOM, we've been playing it, Demolition on Crossroads, for almost a decade now. I think we're excited about the challenges of really trying to create that new experience. It's going to take SOCOM players somewhere interesting for the next decade. 10 years from now, I'm not sure. I'm sure there's some people that would love to still be playing Crossroads on Demolition, and we would like to create an experience that is just as exciting as that moment that people played SOCOM 2, but really do it in some new and unique ways.
Yeah. So you were mentioning that there are some things you wanted to kind of evolve the franchise and take it to the whole next level. One of the things that's in the game that there's a little bit of controversy on the forums, but this is kind of one of those things. Wait until you get to play it. Is the cover system? So can you talk about how that works and why that's why it's an important addition now to the franchise,
and also why the decision to make it the way it is now versus taking the old approach?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, started again with single player. So again, kicking SOCOM 4 off, we wanted to look at some of the AI tactics we're going to be doing. And a lot of what we came up with was based on AI using cover in intelligent ways. Things like flanking maneuvers, bounding, just different coordinated squad tactics, all that really work great off the AI leveraging cover. And the more we really started to formulate the game around this, you start asking yourself questions like, well, if the AI can do it, why can't I? If it's such a big part of this experience. And, certainly I think cover is becoming a more accepted standard mechanic in a lot of similar online shooters. And so we decided to go ahead and pursue it as a single-player gameplay mechanic. It seemed like a natural fit. It's something that's very tactical. And we got that up and running, but we didn't initially have the intention or, we hadn't necessarily 100% committed to it even existing in multiplayer. We wanted to first get it in single player, and it turned out to be a great fit for single player. I think it's working out really well. I think it does create a more tactical experience. It gives you more flexibility and options. And then, for MP, there were some concerns initially internally. I know some of the same concerns maybe fans have of like, will this slow the game down or will it offer unfair advantages? So we didn't 100% commit to even having an MP. But as long as we built the system, we figured, let's give it a try and to see what the reaction internally is to it. And I think by and large, people within Zipper, the developers, we all think that cover is working really well in the game. And I'll be honest, not everyone uses it. There are still some people that don't use it. But I rarely, if ever, have ever heard any complaints from the people that don't use it. It's more just they say, hey, it's not my style, and I choose to not use the cover.
So for those that aren't familiar with the old style of the SOCOM cover and the new style of the SOCOM cover, can you explain a little bit about what the advantages are of the new cover system versus the old cover system?
Yeah. Well, I think there's somewhat of a difference slightly between the Zipper cover usage in the earlier SOCOM games versus what Confrontation did with some of the 6-axis implementation. I'll comment mainly on the games that we did. So in order to take cover, you would need to basically just walk behind an object, and then you would hit the peek button to peek out from the side manually. If you wanted to pop up and down from cover, you'd have to hit the stance button. And I think really the new cover system that we have it really addresses the clunkiness, I think, of that mechanic. It's not as quick and easy, I think, to use in the old games, triangle button to change stance to peek up and down. And I think that having the snap to cover system where you can easily just press the analog stick and move up and down, it certainly worked well in other games, and I think it's working really well in SOCOM. Now, I think something important to note, though, while a lot of games do have cover systems out there, it was important, and for day one we wanted to acknowledge this, single player and online, that we do cover in a way that matches the SOCOM franchise. We're not just going to take what everyone else is doing. We want to do it our way, in a way that matches the traditions of the series. So first off, an important thing to note is there's no blind firing in our game. I think that's something that maybe we felt would feel kind of cheap, particularly for online play. And in talking to some of our special forces advisors and whatnot, it doesn't sound like blind firing is something that real spec ops do all that much. I think generally the professionals are pretty careful about where their bullets are going, making sure they're not hitting.
Only in movies.
Yeah, only in the movies. So that's an important note. We didn't want to support blind firing for that reason, to keep it very SOCOM focused. So that being said, I know it'll take some getting used to for some of our hardcore fans to really try it for themselves, but I really feel the vibe internally from our own veterans is that actually works really well in SOCOM 4.
Another thing that's come up quite a bit that I've seen, a lot of the hardcore fans are really curious about the sprinting and how that's being approached, how it works, and now it's your chance to explain.
Sprinting is that was a little bit surprising, I guess, to see the amount of, I guess, the hot topics on the forums regarding sprinting. I would theorize, just based on some of the stuff I've read, that a lot of the concern just revolves around, is the game going to feel too slow if I'm not sprinting and things like that. We didn't start out with sprinting in SOCOM 4, but there was enough demand internally. People felt it was missing, that it's becoming sort of it's another example of a consistent mechanic. It's, I think, appearing in most games these days. And so I think the key there is just how we execute on having it. I think the feeling is internally that we wanted. I think it works good. Certainly, it felt like something was missing without it. But I think we need to make sure we tune the movement speeds to be right, both when sprinting and out. And I think it does offer more tactical options for the player, because you're making a concession when you choose to sprint, right? You're removing your ability to quickly fire. And so, in a situation where maybe you're getting sniped from out far and you need to move from one piece of cover over into a building or whatnot, you're making a conscious decision to try and just go all out to get out of the way of enemy fire, but you're making a concession that if you come across an enemy along the way, you're going to have to exit sprint mode and take that guy out.
And so people understand, is it a button? Is it pushing all the way up on the analog stick? How does it work?
Right now, it's you press down on L3 in order to sprint. So it's pretty easy to get in and out of. And we're not occupying any valuable controller real estate like, say on the face buttons or the trigger buttons. I think L3 is a pretty natural place to have it.
For sure.
Yep. Let's go to a reader question here. Flip It 3 wants to know, are you planning on putting vehicles in the game, or is it sticking to like the old school stuff?
Well, we definitely do read the forums. When we got things going with, particularly SOCOM 4 MP, this wasn't so much a single-player thing, but it was particularly related to MP. We know that the hardcore fans really want that infantry-based experience. So while there may be differences between some of the game modes and map designs between us, SOCOM 4 and Confrontation, we do share the same thing in common, which is we will not be supporting drivable vehicles in multiplayer. And the main reason of that is specifically because we know that the fans wanted more classic infantry-based experience. So
I'm going to put you on the spot here and have you answer a mag question. I'm only kidding. I'll answer it. The El Capichucho wants to know if mag will ever see any kind of clan support. It has clan support now. It's not the most robust clan support that we are aiming to get, but yes, right now we actually have in development an expanded clan support add-on for the game. Don't have any specific time frame for it yet, but we're working on it. We've got some cool things in there, so stay tuned for that.
Reader Ajax, or specifically, what is this? Line, Ajax, line. Anyway, he says, what have been, but let's go with the single biggest challenge in the creation of SOCOM 4.
Ooh, well, good question. I think anytime you really make a fresh start, using a new engine, redoing the way you do things like some of the core gameplay, AI mechanics and things like that. I think that's the biggest challenge, is really taking a fresh start at everything and having to get those built up from the ground. So, unlike when we do, for example, in the old games on on PS2 where we did a sequel, like, say, SOCOM 2. That was pretty easy because we were just basically taking what we had already built on SOCOM 1 and just filling it in with new content. Whereas SOCOM 4, we're really looking at everything and, again, re-architecting it and designing it from the ground level. So that takes time for those core mechanics and other core features to really gel and get to the point where you start to feel how the overall experience is coming together.
What about Dragon Knight's question? Dragon Knight wants to know a big one. What kind of environments can we expect to see in S4?
Oh, we have quite a diversity of environments. Just to name a few, we have like a World War II era coastal fort, which is really fun. We have big city environments, so like destroyed Southeast Asian metropolises, if you will. Southeast Asian villages, hydroelectric facility, and quite a few. So, I mean, it boils down to, we have more urban maps, rural maps, and, a combination of industrial complexes. So I think players will find both online and off that there's great diversity of maps. And also, something I should mention, too, is the size of the maps, because I feel like that's something we really wanted to address this time around, is really make sure we nail the combat density. Because I think, in some of the concern over vehicles in the previous game, some of that was directed, I think, just to the scale of the maps and the fact that we didn't have quite the density of combat. So one thing we really want to do is make sure that we have that density right and that we have maps of a variety of sizes so that, if you don't have a full game or you just want to play with a smaller group of people, that we have maps that are more well-suited towards that.
Partner wants to write in, I guess he did write in. He wants to know, with the PlayStation Move, SOCOM is pretty much of all the games we've seen now, the SOCOM 4 is the biggest game, I guess, that we've seen with the Move so far. But are there any gameplay differences between playing with the DualShock versus playing with the Move? Is there any aim assist differences? Basically, is it just a control thing, or is there actually gameplay changes if you're playing with the Move?
Well, for starters, we wanted to really make sure that the Move makes a more immersive experience, but we don't want to necessarily take away or add key gameplay capabilities one way or the other. So there are some subtle differences, but in most cases it's more just to balance the two. So an example would be currently, and we'll still be working on this, the scope works a little bit differently with the Move. Just by the nature of how the mechanics of the Move work, we actually detach the scope element, if you will, when you're in scope mode and let it move around the screen. So that's an example of something that works differently, and obviously the standard reticle behaviors differently, but in terms of major gameplay capabilities, we tried to balance them to be the same, mainly because, of course, we have that goal of players wanting to be able to go online and play against each other, someone with a DualShock versus a Move. And it wouldn't really be fair if one or the other had some crazy thing they could do that the other person couldn't.
It's really about accessibility versus advantages.
Exactly. It's about accessibility for people that aren't used to playing with a DualShock or maybe never mastered the dual analog sticks, but also, again, about immersiveness, because I do think that playing with the Move creates a really unique and immersive experience.
Question that comes up all the time, not only on our own forums, but I've seen it everywhere, is does the release of SOCOM 4 mean the death of MAG? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you just look at the two games, they're quite a bit different. I mean, MAG is all about scale, obviously drivable vehicles, there's a lot of more in-depth character progression and things like that, where SOCOM 4, obviously we have a lot of focus on single player, and with our MP, it's more about tighter infantry combat of a smaller scale. And I think that the game modes and the core gameplay are really quite different. So I think they really complement each other, and they won't really be stepping over each other.
Also, we have to keep supporting it, so we have something to post on the MAG blog.
That's right. Well, plus there's we have so many MAG things coming. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's gonna be crazy.
There's a lot to look forward to. Speaking of which, now just so that everybody's kind of aware of this, we've obviously got MAG and SOCOM going on here. So what we're going to try to do week to week on the show is kind of bounce back and forth, so everybody will get a taste of kind of both sides of the fence, and we'll mix things up. And we're going to try to hit all departments over time. So we'll have audio guys in here and programmers and all of these sorts of things. I think we're going to have to start wrapping up here at the end of the show. Lots of meetings going on these days, as you said in the beginning here. But I think one thing that everybody wants to know is, the game's not out yet. It's not even done. But how does SOCOM 4 end?
Well, we're going to... And then we're going to...
Okay, that sounds pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That kind of brings to the end of the show. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping here.
Before we do that, I just want to throw one thing out there. Of the 600 plus questions we got for Travis, and we did get that many, it was crazy. Yeah. Thank you. Keep them coming. A lot of them were multiplayer focused. And unfortunately, we're not necessarily ready to talk about all of our multiplayer stuff just yet. So we ask that you be patient and hang in there. I can tell you we're going to have, not necessarily multiplayer, but we are going to have some more information on SOCOM coming in the press sometime in the next...
very soon.
In the next very soon, yeah, pretty soon. And then you're definitely going to see quite a few bits of info on S4 before E3, which is in June. So hang in there. You're going to get some stuff.
Yeah. In terms of things that you should be going to do, you should look for us on Twitter. Everybody's using this thing. Conan O'Brien has seemingly made it famous. But anyway, go for us on Twitter. It's just Zipper, @Zipper on Twitter.
That's right.
You want to pitch Facebook?
No, yeah, I will. And you can also find us on Facebook. It's Zipper Interactive. Just do a search for us in the window, and you'll find us. Feel free to add us.
If there's a red Z, you found the right thing.
That's right. It's a big Z. You can't miss it. Same thing that's at the start of all the intro screens. And, of course, obviously, if we have your questions, you're already visiting us on the MAG and SOCOM forums. But please keep visiting. Ask as many questions as you want on the official threads. We'll try to fit as many of them as we can into our podcast.
Yep. And then why don't you pitch next week's guest before we get out of here?
Well, fine. I will pitch next week's guest. Next week's guest is going to be Jason Olander, and he is the guy that is one of two primary driving design forces behind what we call MAG Live internally. MAG Live is the ongoing name that we have for MAG as it continues to evolve. The other being Scott Rudy, and he's going to be on another episode in the future. But Olander is going to come in here. You know him on the boards as Benjamin Brigg. He was very active during the beta period, so lots of folks might remember him from there. He's also a huge Rush fan, so make sure you ask him some Rush trivia. I bet you he can answer it all.
I did not know him at this point, but I would wager a guess that when Zoolander came out, there was plenty of jokes about that going on. And I'm going to find out about these and then bring him back into the show, do a little Blue Steel or whatever that thing is called. I'm sure he's going to enter.
Don't forget about Magnum.
That's it, the Magnum.
Magnum is the look.
Yep. Maybe make up some new ones.
But turning back real quick to this week's guest, Travis Steiner. Travis, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. We're glad that you're here. Also, one last thing for everyone who listens to this podcast. This was podcast number 1. If you have any suggestions, things you'd like to hear, things you'd like us to cover, people you'd like us to talk to, feel free to let us know through the forums. And we're going to be setting up a very specific podcast-oriented thread every week, so you won't be able to miss us. Also, send any of your emails that you have questions for the podcast to podcasts@zipperint.com.
There it is. That's the end of the show. Thank everybody for listening. And again, go send us more questions. Send us stuff for Jason Olander next week. And we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks.